I would now like to extend a warm welcome to our interview for this event, Ashmi Banerjee. She's originally from India but currently based in Germany. She's a doctoral researcher at Technical University of Munich, Germany, and her research focuses on recommender systems and human-computer interaction. She holds a master's degree in computer science, and as a Google Women Tech Makers Ambassador, and as a diversity enthusiast, she's pretty passionate about bridging the gender gap in STEM through her voluntary activities. And when she's not sitting in front of a computer, she is either traveling or training to be a triathlete. So a warm welcome to you, Ashmi, and I will now pass over the session to you.
Thank you so much, Siddhi, for the introduction. So today I will be interviewing a very special guest, and before I introduce him, I would like to share a little anecdote from my life. So I have actually attended multiple workshops on public speaking before, where they taught us, how to ace the public speaking workshops and stuff. And one major takeaway from most of these workshops was that own your topic as if you are the only expert in the room, as if you are the creator of that topic. And in one such event earlier this year, so it was at the VR Developers Conference, Berlin, I was delivering a talk on FastAPI, so the popular Python backend framework, FastAPI. The talk was hopefully well received by the audience. And among the other questions, one I received during the Q&A session, one of the questions I received was, how is it, or like, what is its industrial application, or how much is being used in the industry? I was very confident about my answers, because as I have learned in these confidence building workshops, and I answered, oh yeah, with a lot of fake confidence that, yeah, they are very popular. I have learned from the web that, these companies use that. And little did I know at that time that I was answering to the creator of FastAPI himself. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Sebastián Ramírez, the creator of FastAPI, Typer, SQLModel, and other open source tools, mainly using Python. Sebastián works as a senior staff engineer at Forethought, while also helping other companies as an external consultant. He's currently living in Berlin. So, yeah, that's amazing, and we are so happy to have you, Sebastián. So would you like to add something to introduction, or like tell us something about yourself, so that we can start with the process finally?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction and for the invitation. That was such an introduction. You make me sound like as if I was cool.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, would you like to tell us something about yourself, or how you think your friends, families, and colleagues, they perceive you? Something about, like, as a opening icebreaker thing.
Something about myself. I don't know. I like to code a lot. I really like to. I don't know. It's like one of the main ideas or principles I have is to help people be more efficient and be able to achieve more things and help others. And like help people help others is one of the things that I have been wanting to do through all the things that I have done. So all these open source projects are also like trying to help people help others and achieve things and be able to develop things without having, without having to learn a lot of stuff in other places, but like helping people achieve things. I think that's like one of the main things that that moves me. So yeah, I think that's like a very personal motivation that I have. And I don't know, like how people see me. I'm not very good at talking about myself. I would think that like my close friends probably know that I keep trying to make jokes all the time and making puns and like word jokes, but almost no one gets them. And I just look like as if I'm just talking random stuff I'm just weird. But like people that are like close to me and know that they like get the references and like they just like giggle a little bit sometimes. But yeah, just a nerd in a basement. It's just that the basement has a window, but yeah.
Okay. That's actually very interesting. So how were you introduced to tech? Like, how did you, become this amazing tech guru?
Amazing tech guru. I don't know who you're talking about, but I got introduced to tech. It's kind of funny. So I am from Colombia, South America. My parents, like, until I was a teenager, we didn't really have a computer at home. Well, actually, before I was a teenager, when I was a kid, there was a computer, but it was like my sister's computer, and then there was like the house computer, and I just like got to use it sometimes and things like that. But I was always interested in that, and I was always interested in machines, and I wanted to learn how to use tools and devices and stuff. And I also wanted to play video games, but I never had a console or like an Xbox, a Nintendo, any of that. I didn't have any of that. And I learned that I could play video games in the computer, but then the computer had to be good. But then if I was working on the computer and building stuff in the computer and like the computer was being productive, my parents will agree to have a good computer. So I think that was one of the secret motivations to get into stuff in computers, to be able to play video games at some point. So I started learning how to do video edition and video effects and just like playing with friends to make movies. But then like I was learning a lot with that. Then I ended up doing graphic design. It was mainly to help my parents with their business, with their family business, just like my parents. But then like doing graphic design for them, and then like doing I also moved to music production and just like learning a bunch of random things just by trying stuff out in the computer. And at some point I ended up like I realized that the next thing that they will need will be a website for their small company. So I thought like, okay, this is probably easy. It's probably just like one of those graphic design programs. So I'm just gonna try and learn how to do that and make it. Of course, it was not easy, but I started learning a lot just online, reading documentation and websites that were just like teaching how to use HTML and CSS and JavaScript and things like that. And then I started liking it and learning more and trying to do more. And I think that's how I ended up just like getting into technology and code and just like using computers. I was just like trying to solve things for my parents at that moment, but then I ended up just like liking it and continued doing that.
That's amazing. That's actually very inspirational. I mean, most of the 90s born kids had like limited access to computers, at least during their earlier childhood. And I personally can't think of any such stories where they made this, like put this in such a use that they can now have an excuse to use the computers, because computers were like a very valuable asset, a very valuable thing that you can only touch if you have, I don't know, some special privileges or something.
Yes.
Right? So this is really good. Like this is
the same with the internet. It was like
yes.
This internet by phone that no one could use the phone, and you would hear the
Yeah.
and it was so annoying and it was so slow, and then trying to get information and trying to download websites to read them later, because later I was not going to have internet. It was difficult.
Right. Yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. So I mean, you have been homeschooled, right? We learned from some sources. So do you want to like share some experience there? Like how was that experience, or how was it, say, different from a traditional university experience or something? Like what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, my parents, one of the things that they were doing was motivational, personal motivation courses and things like that. And they had studied how to do like a bunch of technology studies and like study technologies, like technologies to study and methodologies to study and things like that. And they were like giving courses about that and that stuff. So they had like some resources that will help me like guide me to just like study by myself. I actually went to school to elementary first. But after that, like, I don't know, I finished that year and like, I think I was one of the first in my class, but I felt like I didn't know anything. I hadn't learned anything, or like I didn't, yeah, and I was not enjoying it. And they told me, okay, like you can go out of school, but you have to study the same, but it's just that you will study at home. And it was like, yes, let's do that. So then they let me do that, and I ended up just like learning with my parents at home. I ended up studying like, I don't know, a bunch of the initial grades several times, like following one methodology or the other. Then I ended up not studying some of the more advanced grades and things like that. And I ended up just like studying a bunch of online courses at some point. Well, first I started just like learning how to do this video production, video effects, music production, graphic design, and a bunch of these things, and learning about the standards and the standards for video, for audio, and like the technology behind all that. And then I ended up just like learning how to code. And then I ended up studying a lot of online courses. It was when Coursera, edX, and Udacity were just like showing up. It was like the first iterations of that. And I took like all the courses I could in all those platforms. I think that's when I started like getting for real into coding, like more, let's say, professionally. And yeah, like I ended up just like learning a lot about those things, even though I hadn't studied many of the things that people normally study in school, but I ended up just like studying other things. And I don't know, it was a very strange path that I took, but in the end, I think in the end, it sort of worked out. So yeah, it was more or less something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's also very inspiring because, I mean, you found your passion at a very young age. That's what I understood. And you just followed your passion, and that's amazing.
Yeah, although I don't know, like I wouldn't think that I found my passion early. Like I was switching passions so much. You know, like I studied music. I play some guitar. I studied piano and violin. And I thought like, oh, I'm gonna be a musician. Or then I thought like, I'm gonna be like the thing that my parents do, like just motivational courses and things like that, which has nothing to do with computers. But then I thought like, I'm gonna be doing video edition. And then it was like music production, and then it was graphic design. I really had no idea, but I was just trying different things and trying different things that I was interested in and that I wanted to achieve something. So I wanted, I really liked the video effects, so I wanted to learn how to do that. And then I thought like, maybe I could work on this. I don't know who will pay for that, but maybe. And I was just like trying that way. But at that point, like, I don't know, until I was like, until I was a teenager, like 15 or so, I had no idea that I could even think of getting into programming. But then at that point, I started like touching that and like playing with it. And when I was 20 something is that I started doing all these courses, all these online courses that teach things so well. Because, you know, like it's not like I am not against universities or schools or anything. Like these online courses in most of the cases were taught by the same professors of very well-regarded universities, of Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, like a bunch of these huge universities. But it was the same content, the same material, the same professors teaching things so well and in such a good detail. And I was able to just learn from those great teachers. And at that moment it was online and it was for free, and I was just being able to just study all that. So yeah, I don't know. It's not necessarily that I found my passion early on, but I was trying to find something and trying to figure out ways to achieve things and to do stuff. And that's what ended up moving me to I don't know, to get into coding and into tech.
Yeah, and do you really think that this university brand does make a difference in your profile, or you know, it doesn't matter as long as you know what you're doing?
I think it's strange. So on one side, I know that education in general is is massive. That's a life changer for anyone. Like that's super important. If someone has access to a university and otherwise wouldn't have access to education, that's just massive. It's just like a life-changing thing. Like you can change the generation of a whole family, of a whole society. So that's education is super important. Then about university or not university, I don't think that necessarily is like it has to be one or the other or something like that. If someone has access to a university and it's a good university and it's been able to have good teachers that are trying to make them learn and apply things to life, then that's great. The thing is, I think the focus should be on acquiring skills and tools to apply to life and to solve things and to focus on solving problems and helping improve society. And if the university is giving those tools, then that's amazing. But if there's no university available, or if the university is not being able to provide those tools or not provide them well enough, then alternatives might be able to solve the thing. But the main thing is that the focus should be on solving things and figuring out ways to acquire skills and tools to be able to solve things and help others and help society. So that's the thing that I'm I don't know. That's my strong opinion. It's not against universities or anything. It's just in pro of learning how to do things to help others. In many cases, formal education ends up being about passing quizzes and studying how to present quizzes and things like that, or how to memorize dates. And like that doesn't help anyone. You know, memorizing dates or memorizing, like, I don't know, terms to say, oh, I know how to say quick sort or major sort or binary tree or things like that. You know, like very fancy terms that when you are coding, when you're programming, you're normally just like searching on Google and trying to find answers, like who has done this, and trying to copy paste stuff and see, oh, it works. Let's leave it like that. And like being able to just have that intention and that focus to solve problems, I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely very true. I mean, I don't remember the last time I reversed a linked list outside school. So for real life or for work. So yeah,
I don't know if I have ever reversed a linked list. And like if I was taking one of those tests from like this elite code interviews and things like that, and, oh, invert this binary tree, I will start with, wait, what does that mean? What does it mean to reverse a binary tree? I don't know. Like, you know, many of these terms are just to sound super fancy. And like I took courses that I really liked. For example, there was this algorithms course on Coursera from Stanford, and they were teaching a lot of these graph algorithms, these algorithms to traverse across things that are connected to each other. And like, it was fascinating. I really liked it, and it was very well explained. But when those ideas are just used as a gatekeeper to prevent people from actually working, I think that's crazy. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, to be honest. So, I mean, we talked about your, education, your like a bit about also your earlier lives, earlier days. So, do you want to describe how you came to build FastAPI, or why? What triggered you in building this? So, would you like to share it with the audience?
Yeah, so well, I was actually avoiding creating something new for quite a while. I wanted first to try to figure out what was the right tool for the things that I wanted to achieve. And I think it's very important to be able to be a power user before creating something new. So being able to use the tools that are already there and trying to use them in the right ways, because in some cases those tools already solved problems that you don't necessarily have imagined. And I was trying to use all the tools available that would solve the problems that I wanted. And when I was doing that, when I was working in Colombia with a team of developers, and I was leading that team of developers, and it was a startup, and it was always dealing with data and machine learning and distributed systems. And we were just like jumping from one project to the next and doing also some consultancy for other companies. So we ended up being in a situation where we were kind of creating similar products one after the other, but starting from scratch every time. So I had the chance to lay the foundations of a full application that needed to have like very diverse needs several times. And I was seeing that there were some problems that needed to be solved again and again. And there were things that could be improved, and there were best practices that could be had. So, for example, I saw that Django REST framework had a way to generate automatic documentation of the API that was built. And I thought that was amazing. And I wanted to have that. But then I discovered that there was this new standard called Swagger that then was renamed to OpenAPI, and that could provide a standard and a standard way to have documentation for an API. And there was this interactive user interface that will explore that documentation that was Swagger UI. So I realized, okay, this is what I want. I want this. How can I get this? And how can I do that in the programming languages that I'm using? And then I started trying to find the right plugins and the combinations of plugins. At that time, it was using Flask and a bunch of plugins connected to each other, but it was fragile because it's a bunch of plugins that were not made to be working with each other. It was just like kind of done by hands. So it was that was the closest thing that I had to the things that I wanted to achieve. I wanted to be able to have a bunch of features. For example, automatic documentation, data validation, data serialization, and a bunch of other things. I also wanted the developers to have a very nice developer experience, to be able to be as efficient as possible and as productive as possible without the pains of like, oh, I have to edit this file here and there and this other file over there, to be able to do one single thing. I wanted them to be able to just change one thing, and that would fix the whole thing, and that will do everything. For example, if something was a text, was a string, we had to define, oh, this is a string for the validation. But then for the documentation in another place, we had to say, this is a string. And then for the serialization of the data for something else, also, this is a string. And then when that had to change, it will have to be changed in all the different places. So that's very difficult to deal with. When you have to synchronize code in different places and have duplication, not of code, but of information in different places, that's very dangerous because it's very easy to have bugs of things that get out of sync. So I wanted to avoid all that. And I was learning from all these frameworks that I was trying. I also even tried other languages. I tried with TypeScript and I tried other things, and I investigated like if Golang had anything like that. And I ended up coming back to Python. And at that point, Python added Python 3.6 added, well, it was 3.5, but 3.6 improved things and added these type annotations. So these type annotations, I imagine that many of the people watching this already work with Python. The type annotations are the way that you tell Python, hey, this variable is of this type. This variable is a string, or the variable is a dictionary, or things like that. And adding these type annotations is what allows the editor, Visual Studio Code, PyCharm, whatever you use, is what allows the editor to tell you, to give you autocompletion for the attributes, for the methods, or to give you errors like, hey, you cannot sum a string with an integer. And it can give you that support without you having to run the code. So you don't have to wait until you run the code in production before knowing those errors or before figuring out how to do those things. So I wanted to take advantage of these type annotations, and I wanted that to also do all these things of data validation, documentation, and all that stuff. So at that point, I was like very close to the thing that I wanted, and I discovered the framework that almost did almost everything that I wanted. It was just missing things about authentication. And I decided I'm gonna use this and I'm gonna try to contribute to this, the authentication parts. And when I was about to start doing that, the author had to deprecate it and say like, I cannot do this anymore. So they go try to find something else. And that same author was the same author of Django REST framework. And it was also the same author of Starlet, which is this kit or low-level framework for building web applications. Tom Christie, which is an amazing person. And then I decided, okay, this is the time. Let's just try to do this. I almost found the right thing. It was right there, but then it's no longer there. There's no alternative, so I'm gonna just try to build it. And then I started trying to build the whole thing. And I used Starlet because Starlet I had like all these great low-level foundations, and it provided all the web parts. And I wanted to use Pydantic that does all the data parts, data validation, serialization, documentation. But then to be able to get all that based on these standards on OpenAPI and all that stuff, I had to go and learn those standards and understand them and study them. So I ended up going to study OpenAPI, and I discovered that OpenAPI used another standard called JSON schema for defining the shapes of data, the shapes of JSON. So I ended up going to study those JSON schema standards, and it also used OAuth 2, which is used for authentication. And when you do login with Google or login with Facebook or login with GitHub, all those things are using OAuth 2, which is just like a standard, like a web standard that any of these platforms can use. And OpenAPI also has integrations with that. So I had to learn also those standards and study all that. So it was a lot of just studying standards to then being able to integrate them into the tools. And then the next step was actually contributing to Pydantic and to Starlet to improve some things, for example, to a JSON schema to Pydantic. Once all the building blocks were there, I was finally able to just sit and try to build FastAPI. So yeah, like, I don't know, it was like a bunch of previous steps and learnings from all these previous frameworks that did an amazing work before. And that provided all these different features and all these ideas. And I was just like trying to collect all those ideas and those learnings that I had through the years and put them in a single place in FastAPI. And then when I was building FastAPI, the first thing that I was doing was actually designing how it will feel to work with FastAPI. So I wanted to have auto-completion and inline errors for everything. And I was trying, if this was coded like this, will it work? Will I be able to get auto-completion for these things or not? So I designed how the code should look like for the final user. And I tested that on multiple editors to make sure that everyone will have a great experience working with FastAPI. And then when I had that done, I wrote the internal code. But it was after I had like the decision of how this should look like and how this should feel and how do I manage to get auto-completion for everything and all these things. And then that was, I don't know, it was like, like the first version, it was like 3-6 months or something, very intense months, like just working like crazy all day and until very late at night. But I was so excited about this that, yeah, it was like, it kept me going.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's like really amazing. And the people who have used FastAPI can totally vouch for it because, yeah, I mean, I have also used Django before. I have used I have used Flask before. But when I was introduced to FastAPI, I was like, wow, where was this all this time? Why was I struggling with Django and Flask when I could have just done this, you know? Yeah, so that's incredible. I mean, once again, hats off to you, kudos to you for making our lives so much bug-free, I would say. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that, and that was the intention. And at the same time, it's also all thanks to Django and Flask and many other frameworks, because like all these learnings were from the work done by all these amazing people that came before and that built all these great tools before. Like that's where I took all the learnings. You know, it's like research. They say that if you just copy paste one paper, then that's plagiarism. But if you copy paste multiple papers and combine them, that's research. So
of course.
it was something like that. It was like all the learnings from these amazing tools that came before and just like putting them together.
So like, do you really enjoy, like I see that you have a lot of fan following and all these things, and you have gained a lot of popularity now in the tech sphere. Do you enjoy that, or how do you feel about that?
That is so strange, you know, like when people tell me like, oh, you're popular, you're famous, it's like, what, me? No, like, no, no one knows me. It's actually quite strange and quite like unexpected. I never expected that. Like I was never that type. I don't know. It's very fun. It's very interesting and very cool. Like, for example, when I'm seeing issues in FastAPI, people normally go to the issues when they have a problem. And when they have a problem, they tend to be frustrated and angry about something. And then it's very easy for people to be disrespectful or entitled or not gentle. And in many cases, people think that open source happens magically, or that it's like funded by gigantic corporations behind the scenes or something, and they don't realize that it's just like random people that are just like doing stuff to help others, and that's it. So in many cases, there's a lot of bitterness in that part, just like reading issues and trying to figure out what's the problem. And in, like, I don't know, 90-something% of the cases is actually an error in the users, in the developers. But they think that it's a bug in the framework, but it's actually just an error they are having, or they didn't read the code documentation or something like that. But like, you know, it's something that is draining, and that is like saddening and like consumes energy. But then these interactions, on the other hand, with people on Twitter or LinkedIn or things like that, like getting the warmer friendly conversations and communications, and people saying like, oh, like your tool is so cool, or like, thank you, like it saved us so much effort, or like, I don't know, like, hey, I got a job because I learned FastAPI, and like that is so amazing. It compensates a lot of that bitterness that comes from dealing with all the issues and all the problems and all the when people are like sad and frustrated and like demanding. That's compensated a lot with these like nice conversations and these nice communications. That helps a lot. At the same time, is strange, because it's not that I'm like a very developer or something like that. Like, I'm just like some random developer, and like I had opinions before, but no one heard them. And now, like, sometimes I say something and it's like, I would think I would like this more than that. And there's a bunch of interactions and people are like, oh, we should do this and that. And it's like, no, wait. I don't know. Like, check that, double check that. It's like something that I say. Don't just like do whatever I say, because like, I'm not even sure. I'll probably change my mind as well. So like, yeah, sometimes that's very strange, you know, like, seeing that like people will listen to me. I don't know why. So that's very fun.
That's very interesting, actually. So what were the challenges that you faced when you were, either transitioning to tech, or even when you were building FastAPI? I mean, you highlighted some of the challenges in the text here, but like, as a person, what were the challenges that you faced and you had to overcome them? And how did you even overcome them?
So, for example, my family, no one was into computers. They were mostly like artists and musicians and things like that. So like, I was the it's not the black sheep, but the engineer sheep in the family. So it was very strange. In many cases, like, I was like studying things that no one else understood, or like I had not many people to talk to, or things like that. For example, when I was doing these courses and I was learning about things like cryptography, with this very complex and like sophisticated number theory algorithms that are so like mathematical, but like they explained them so well that I felt like I was understanding them. But the thing is that it was something that no one around me will understand. And in many cases, I felt like, why am I really learning like all this stuff? Like, what am I gonna do with this? Like, in this environment, I'm just like some random dude in like the corner of the world in Colombia. Like, why am I learning these things? But like, I don't know. It's like so interesting, and it feels like it could be so powerful that let's just keep doing it. But it was scary. It was very scary to go and do something like that when I felt like it was not gonna be for anything, you know, just like losing my time learning something that I didn't have I wasn't going to have the opportunity to use, you know, like that feeling. That feeling was difficult and strange. But in the end, like I ended up being able to use all that. So that was amazing. But you know, like all that feeling and like the constant feeling of like not knowing enough or not being capable enough or not doing enough, you know, like that imposter syndrome that I guess we all get, of feeling like others probably know a lot more than we. And like that's just like a constant thing that keeps there forever and it doesn't change. Like if anything, you just learn to live with it, but it's just like always there. It's not even something that you overcome, you just get used to it, and just like know that even if other people know a lot more, but you can solve things with what you know, then that's what is most valuable. And I think that is the best approach that we can have. But of course, it's scary. It's scary to have that feeling and to have that sensation constantly. Yeah, it's like a constant struggle.
I can totally get it. I mean, and it's again really really impressive how you overcame that, and here you are, sitting with us, talking about your accomplishments and your challenges and your journey. And we are so indebted to you for sharing all these incredible information with us. So, I mean, now coming back to, a little bit on the advice that you would like to give to other women, or, I mean, first of all, okay, if I can quote one of your social media posts, you mentioned that you consider tech to be a very inclusive society, right? Or an inclusive community. But then we have this eternal problem of having very few women in tech. So what, or how would you like to address that or explain that? Do you have any comments there?
Yeah. So when I say that tech is a very inclusive field, is in contrast to many other fields. We have terrible things to fix. We have a terrible salary gap among men and women. We are missing so many women in STEM in general, in like sciences and math. Like it's just like something that is terrible and that we need to fix. But still, I feel like we have a field that is a little bit better than many other fields. That you don't have to be born in some particular country to be able to have access to the internet and to learn things and to try to get involved in code and in a community. Like through the internet, you can talk to whoever, and like if they are in tech, it's much more possible that they are going to be reachable. Like if you try to talk to a congressman, the president, I don't know, it's probably not gonna be so easy to reach out than if you try to reach out to someone that is in tech and that can actually help you in some way. So I think that's a little bit better in our field than in many other fields. But at the same time, we have a lot to improve. We have a massive work to do. I think there are also like sub communities, and like, for example, in different programming languages and different frameworks, it varies a bit. In Python, I feel like the community is somewhat inclusive in comparison to other communities, and I think that's great. But at the same time, there are like sub projects and things that might be more inclined to others than to be inclusive and to help people thrive in those communities. I have tried for FastAPI to be inclusive as possible, and like one of the things that I have been wanting, and it's not just about gender. There are many different ways that can have people isolated in minorities. For example, access to study or location or race, or gender identity, sex orientation, like whatever. There are many things that can be discriminated, and like trying to figure out the best ways to help everyone be included is like something that I have at least wanted to do. I'm probably not the best at that, and like like I'm from Colombia, but apart from that, I'm like almost another white dude, which is all we have, and that's the main problem, that we just have too many white dudes. And like I don't know, I have been trying to make the FastAPI community as inclusive and helpful as possible, and like always welcoming questions and always trying to welcome contributions and help. But there's so much to do. I think like one of the things that can be done, but it's just like my point of view as an almost white male, so that is probably worthless. But anyway, one of the things that I think could be done is like trying to get involved in the communities that are a bit more welcoming. I will hope FastAPI will be a welcoming community. The other thing that could be done is actually that I could do is actually listening, and like I think you and like women could tell me, what can I do better, what can we do better, how can we help this field be more inclusive and more welcoming to women and to everyone. So yeah, like I would actually love for you or for anyone in the audience to tell me like what are the things that we could do better, because I think the main thing that we need to do is to listen.
That's amazing. Yeah, I guess we have like a huge line of questions pending, but we'll come to that. But I would like to end the, the question answer part here, but we have another round for you. So I'll try to share my screen first for that, because we would like to do a rapid fire with you, and where you have to choose certain things. Yeah, so certain options.
Cool.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, I see.
Okay, perfect. So I forgot to add the first question there, but I will just ask you like one tech role model.
One tech role model. There are many, but now I will say Carol Willing. She's one of the core developers of Python, also Jupyter, and she was up to recently part of the steering council, so the people that decide what goes and doesn't go in Python, in the language itself. And she's such a nice person and such a like she's always integrating the communities, and like where there are like opposing points of view, she's always in the middle trying to put them together and to help everyone and to have everyone accounted for, and like that's just amazing. Like apart from being a genius and like being super smart and super skilled person, she's such a great like I will say leader. I guess she probably doesn't consider herself a leader, but she's leading people and like integrating people and welcoming everyone from all the corners of the community, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing that you actually chose someone this amazing, and also it was a female. So at a WWCode
there are so many amazing females. Like I met so many amazing female developers. Like her. There's for example Carolina Ladino in Colombia. She's one of the leaders of PyLadies and PyCon Colombia, and like I've met her several times, and it's always like she's just teaching me stuff, and it's just amazing, and it's just like learning about robotics and stuff, and it's like wow. And like I don't know, the Marlene Megamdi, that is one of the leaders of PyCon Africa. She's super cool as well. Ines Montani, she's like one of the founders of Explosion, one of the creators of Spacey. I have seen her code live, and it's fascinating to see how fast she can code something and write correct code, and she just does that effortlessly, and it's super cool. Like, and like I could go on and on the list, but like yeah, like I think we need to highlight more that. Like, we need to be able to see that more, because like, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's also one of the reasons we started off with this series, to highlight the people who have contributed so much to tech. And they need to be highlighted. They need to be, they need to be given some spotlight. And yeah, so that was the main purpose behind this series. So now the actual rapid fire, you will just like we will, no explanations, nothing, just choose one of the
Okay,
options.
I'm gonna get in
Yeah.
trouble.
It's gonna be fun, trust me. Yeah. So FastAPI or Flask?
Oh, that's a tough one. Actually, no, I will choose FastAPI. I'm biased.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So Mac, Linux, or Windows?
Linux.
Great.
And I
I
have
mean,
used all of them. Like, I
yeah,
tend to have to use all of them, but Linux is I'm the most productive there.
great. Vim, VS Code, Python.
They're all great, but VS Code for me.
Cool. So command line or GUI person?
Both. I tweak
Ooh.
my command line a lot, but for example, when I'm doing Git, I do Git commit in the command line, but I add the files to Git in the editor. So yeah, I end up just mixing them.
Okay, that's very interesting. So Android or iPhone, or basically
Android,
iOS?
Android all the way. Linux.
So data science or web dev?
What is the middle? Or both.
Oh, okay, you're being very diplomatic.
No, but it's that I really like both. Like, I wanted to do machine learning. Like, I was
Uh-huh.
trying to do machine learning, and I figured out that I needed to be able to expose machine learning models and like these systems, distributed systems and stuff in APIs, and I needed to improve APIs. I ended up just like staying in APIs, but it was also that I was gonna be able to do data science. So like, I really like data science and machine learning as well.
Okay, so next, manager or a developer? What would you like to be?
Right now, I am mostly a developer, and I am enjoying it a lot. I enjoy a lot with my colleagues. And when I was being more of a manager, well, I was still being a developer, but I had a fun time and I learned a lot. And like, for example, FastAPI was also born of trying to help the developers that I was leading have a better time and be able to write better code and stuff like that. But right now, I'm enjoying being a developer. I really like writing code.
Okay, that's cool. So backend or front end?
Both, like, I have enjoyed front end a lot, but because I'm dealing with FastAPI and a lot of Python, I guess I will choose backend, because that's where I
Okay,
will have that's where I will find a job probably.
okay, makes sense. So coding or partying?
Coding, some parting, but in the end, it's going to be more coding than parting.
Okay, and work from office or remote work?
Remote work all the way.
Great. So are you a morning person or a night owl?
Probably more of a night owl, sometimes morning person, but normally more a night owl.
Cool. So tea and coffee, and this one is, I think, the last. So
Coffee.
okay, great. So with that, we actually have come to the end of our conversation, and we are running a bit short on time, but I will stop sharing, and then I will try to like ask the questions, and maybe Sebastian, we have a lot of questions for you, so it would be great if you would like to quickly answer them.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
yeah, the first question, so all of them are from anonymous attendee. So yeah, how do you feel about FastAPI changing the world? I think we briefly highlighted it about your fandom, but then maybe very short, because we are also running a bit short on time. You can just tell us.
Thank you very much for saying that. It's amazing to hear something like that. It's still difficult to believe that it's doing something like changing the world, but like, it's amazing to see that it's helping so much people. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. The next one is, can you talk more about how the education purpose or access point has to be separated from status and boredom or engagement, especially for the rest of the world who cannot access top-tier edu system or the internet?
Oof. I think because one thing is top tier educational systems and the other one is the internet. Like not being able to access top tier educational systems is like, yeah, most of us don't have access to that. But not having access to the internet, and I know there's many people without access to internet, is like it's just so difficult because the internet provides so much resources. I think governments should do an effort to provide more access to internet because I think that will help a lot of the things. At the boredom and engagement, I think that's very important in education, that education should be focused and targeted at achieving things and being able to do things and having practical experience with things, not just like swallowing information and theory like a machine, but being able to have information that can be immediately applied. I think that is the key to these things. I also think that, and I recently was writing about that, that art can play a very important role in education because art is the finest ways, the finest way of communication, and like you can learn a lot when you're learning through art. So diagrams, even music and songs, or like just drawings, or like or even like, I don't know, literature or the way of writing something. I think that can help a lot, being able to understand and learn things, and making sure that you are being able to learn them, to apply them to real life. But I think the main thing is to have the focus on applying things to real life and to solve real problems. If you have that focus, that helps align everything else.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very well answered, actually. The reason those terms are important is to build a common understanding for people, but you're correct. Can you talk more about how high concept / snobbery language or terms function to select out low income and diverse people who do not have education resources access? I guess we
Yeah.
somewhat highlighted it as well, but yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, like, it's true that we need to have common language. So if we need to be able to say like, oh, this algorithm is running in constant time, to say that, oh, this is computationally feasible, it can be done. But the thing is that when that language and those things are used to be a gatekeeper for people trying to find a job, they could be amazing coders, amazing developers, and could have like all the intuition to be able to solve those things. But when those terms are only used just to like being a snob and like just like limiting people out, that's how, when it doesn't work. I think someone that does this very well is Andrew Ng, the creator of Coursera and Deep Learning.ai and like a bunch of other things. In his machine learning courses, which are the best machine learning courses around, he teaches, right? He teaches the concepts so well and explains them so simply, but then also says like, hey, this has this name and this has this other name. These are like the technical fancy names, but it just means this and that. So you can understand what is actually happening behind the scenes, and then also learn the words, because learning the words is very important. Like learning the definitions of the words. That's one of the main things that you can do for studying, and that's like the key tip when you are studying and trying to see how to study. Learning the definitions of the words that you don't know. So checking out those definitions in a dictionary. That's it, and that can change your life in study. But then these people like Andrew Ng that teach the concepts and explain the definitions and explain the words, that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the next question is, when you were going through all your knowledge acquisition from framework to framework and other open source projects, were you never deterred or doubted your intentions?
Yes, at every step along the way, I was doubting my intentions and my ideas. When I was writing FastAPI, I was just like, like coding like crazy from very early in the morning until very late in the night. Like this finger was getting numb. My eyelid was like blinking, like, you know, I was like, I was falling to pieces, and I was all the time feeling that it was going to be just lost time, that I was going to figure out that something in my ideas was completely flawed and it didn't make sense. And there was a reason why I shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. I was always having that idea. But things kept working, and I just kept putting work to that, and putting like the work, and stuff kept just working and going well. So I don't know, in the end it worked out, but I was always doubting me.
That's amazing. So the next one, I feel like it's more of a comment. So yes, tech is a very inclusive and helpful community, but it is actually very rigid, biased, and also racist. The changes companies use and teach internally and what they preach do not meet their actions. Tech is not a better field than others. The data doesn't support that, but you are right that the internet and technology is actually a democratizing amplifier. There are many great people and organizations working to make systemic changes in the tech sector. And I guess we kind of resonate with the same thing to some extent, right?
Yeah, totally. I still think that tech is a little bit like, I don't know, more inclusive than, for example, government and other sectors. But yeah, there's a lot to improve, and I think we can do our part slowly.
Absolutely. So I think the next one is also more of a comment. Yay, Python community. I tell everyone to learn Python and join Python groups. I would not be continuing learning programming if I had not started with Python and Women Who Code. So
That's so cool. That's amazing.
yeah.
And totally join communities and get involved with the community and with people. Get to just talk to people, maybe present talks at Python meetups. That helps so much professionally. Like that can help you get a job or hire other people whenever you are already at a company. That in many cases that helps more than sending CVs to a bunch of places. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a bunch of other questions as well, but we are also running a bit short of, like we are already 4 minutes over time. So I'll just quickly ask you two short questions that we have here. So what is your next product going to be something that reduces bias in tech?
I will hope I was able to do something like that. I don't even know how to do that. I would like you to tell me, like anyone that is seeing this, like to tell me what ideas you have, or like what could I do, because I think it's totally something that we should fix. Up to now, I have been trying to make technology a bit more accessible and like a bit easier to learn and to get and to build best practices by default for like everyone, no matter how new someone is to coding, to be able to do things quickly, like not limiting that to just the giant companies that have access to all the resources, but allowing everyone with very little resources to have access to the best technology possible. But there are many things and many types of biases that we need to fix and to solve. And I don't know how to solve most of those. If you have any ideas, or if there's anything that I can do to improve, please let me know.
Absolutely. So I would say if you have to explain FastAPI to a completely new person, how would you do that? That's the question. But I will add a couple of, like a little bit of addition to it in 2 sentences because of the time constraint.
Yeah. I have tried to explain that to my parents so much. I think if you are, it's in technology, but if you were in a restaurant and you had a waiter, you could have a waiter that is very slow and that doesn't know the menu and that forgets what is the menu and doesn't check. But then if you have a waiter that is very well dressed, that is very fast and can learn what you want to order very quickly and give you the right order and do all that very quickly and very professionally and serve everything very cleanly, then FastAPI will be that new waiter in comparison to the previous waiter that could be something else, something close to that, but with computers.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So yeah, Sebastián Ramírez for ML AI president. That's got to be a council or something at the UN. Oh, I totally would be down for that. Oh, God. Yeah.
Thank you
So
very much. I wouldn't vote for me, but thank you.
one last question, because I don't want the anonymous attendee to feel like being left out. So how did you stick with learning online or doing it daily? Online courses are great, but one thing I've noticed is that I buy online courses and do the first few assessments, but never come back. And yet I keep on buying online courses. Any advice to actually finish an online course?
That has happened to me a lot, and I still don't know how to handle it. When I was learning, I was just like so obsessed with that I was just like putting all the time to finish that. But I know that you also get tired on the day, and like, you know, it's difficult. It's also like many people have many different experiences. For example, I don't have children. There's people that have to deal with children and, like, you know, take care of babies. I don't know how they live. It's like, you know, so much effort and so much stuff that many people have to deal with, and like there's a lot of privileges that I've had as well, but I don't know, I think like try not to be hard on yourself, and maybe try to stick only to one and try to finish that one, and maybe figure out a reward for yourself after that one, so you can have like something to motivate you to do it. I don't know, maybe that will work. I'm not even sure.
That's amazing. That's a very inspirational thing to actually share. So this is the last question, or this is the last comment, by the way, we have. So, and after that, I would say we will not take any more questions because we are a bit over time. So in my community, we live by teach one, reach one. For every new thing you learn and accomplish, bring a beginner along. And that, I feel, is an amazing way to also use it as a closing remark, right? Would you agree, Sebastián?
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And I think we need to do that so much more. And hopefully it wasn't just one, but like a couple or more. And that's something that we are really missing.
Yes.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, so amazing. So Sebastián, thank you so much for your time and all the, you know, insightful answers to all our questions and everything. I surely learned a lot, and I'm sure also our audience did the same. So yeah, thank you so much. And we are a bit over time, but I honestly don't mind that because I had so much fun talking to you and learning from you, about you, everything. So yeah. Thank you very much to everyone else who attended, and yeah, have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you everyone for staying. And yeah, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you very much for having me.
No worries, always a pleasure.